What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Nerdgasm. It is the second match of Season 2, Post-Mayhem. I am your host of Blacklander, Brooklyn Vail, here with another triple threat match. We have Tony Field versus Kaleb Koho versus Douglas Casell. People who are known to be great talkers, humorous people, but which one of them will rise to the top? We will find out very soon. But before we get to them, I have to go to our judges, starting off with not the co-commissioner, but often the third man in the Nerdgasm Stress Relief Room. That is Kaleb Koho. Kaleb, how do you feel with this match today?
Why did you say that name? I will not watch the third man. Fuck off, Boatman. But I'm excited to be here today. This is going to be a fun one. There's a certain little boar that I'm excited to see his debate skills up close for once. Also, I'm excited to see Tony. We saw Jacoby. Now we get to see Tony, and I hope that he's just as entertaining. And Doug, I've actually never seen debate before, but he's part of the Battleground crew, so he's got to be good. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. And for our third judge, we had to throw out the bat signal today. We got a call in the nick of time. One, Andrew James Barr, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you doing today? Thank you for coming in on short notice. And how do you feel about these competitors?
You're welcome. If I'm the third man, does that make me Harry Lime? I don't want that. I'm feeling really excited. I didn't know who was competing until just a few seconds ago, and the moment I saw all of their faces pop up, I was like, ooh, this is gonna be a good match. I'm super excited, and thank you for calling me to be part of this.
All right. Well, let's get into the minor competitors with a little bit of freeform. Starting off with, I guess, the person who was farthest away from Multiplex home studios, I guess it'd be Mr. Tony Heel. Tony,
hello.
You are making your debut as always in Nerdgasm. I'll give you the same question that I asked everybody else who makes their debut. Why do you feel that you are going to win this match?
I feel I'm going to win this because I think I can just out-rabbit bullshit these two. Like, I've played both these people before in other matches and stuff, and it's like I respect them a lot, but I think I've just got a little bit of spark of madness if I can beat them.
All right. Best of luck to you, sir. And one of your opponents is one Douglas Casell. Doug, you are an admin over in Movie Battleground, so you've definitely been around debates for a good chunk of time. Why do you feel like you are going to win today's Nerdgasm match?
I feel I'm going to win because Kaleb's too nice, Tony bullshits, and I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of facts.
So short and sweet. That's how we like it here. And your final opponent, gentlemen, is one Kaleb Boatman, one of the runners of movie Warzone here at Multiplex Entertainment. Kaleb, we recently saw you dismantle David Jimenez in a jukebox dance-off match. That definitely didn't have internet connection issues. But why do you feel like you are going to win today's Nerdgasm match?
I mean, look, you can never guarantee that you're going to win a debate match because you don't know what the other opponents are going to throw out. You don't know how they're going to react to your arguments. You know, that's the whole thing. Is I just got to be prepared to think on the fly. But I will say, though, as far as Doug's thing about being too nice, I might have been a bit too nice in my earlier debates. Then a certain one happened with an I'm guessing I'm back guy, so no more Mr. Nice Boat. Just
no more Mr. Nice Boat. No more Mr. K. All right, let's get right into it. So these guys know what's going on here. We have 1 minute of opening followed by a free-form section, not quite 5 minutes like it is in standard heads-up situations, and then closing arguments. It is a race to 3 points. There will be prep questions and speed rounds. One person will be eliminated after the prep forms. But let's get right into it. These guys picked DreamWorks for one of their prep questions, and the question is, what is the best performance in the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy? We're going to be starting with Douglas on this one. You have 1 minute to give us your opening statements.
All right, cool. 1 minute on the board. Let's do this as quick as possible so I can hear their BS as well. When you watch How to Train Your Dragons, all three How to Train Your Dragon movies, you basically get hooked in with the main character who you're watching grow. The reason that you get hooked in is the reason that you get hooked in when you watch Woody from Toy Story. It's because he's the narrative. He's the reason that you do that. His character was built around this voice actor, believe it or not, and that's Jay Baruchel. I'm going with him because when you see the movie, you can close your eyes and just, you know what Jay's doing in the studio. His performance through all three showed the evolution of a character, not just a great side character. He showed an evolution of an entire main character, which is very hard to do with just vocal. To show the scene at the very end, hashtag spoilers, when you see Toothless come back.
And that's time.
Cool.
All right. We'll go over to Tony Heel next. Give us your opening statements and who do you think has the best performance in How to Train Your Dragon?
All right, so one of the things that makes How to Train Your Dragon such a beautiful film is the scenery, it's the idea of it, it's the Vikingness, the Scottishness of it, and the person that really emphasizes that the most, the person that brings it to it, is Stoic, the father figure, which is Gerard Butler. Not only does his accent and his gruffness give that just this air of believability to the whole region, let alone just the character, but he is truly especially in the first film, he's the swingometer for that film. He's the emotional barrier for Hiccup and Toothless to face against. That is where the emotion comes from in his performance. Like, you have Craig Ferguson that also gives that Scottish voice, but it's Gerard Butler's voice that is truly the voice that you think of in that film. Like Hiccup's the main character, but it's like when you think of the movie, you don't think of him. And time.
All right, cool. Over to Caleb Boatman to finish up the opening statement. Sorry. 1 minute. Time begins when we start talking.
I'm going with the performance that the character would not work without the voice performance of this actress. I'm going with Hiccup's mother, voiced by the wonderful, the talented, the Cate Blanchett. I think without Cate Blanchett's brilliant voice inflections and performance in these films, I think this is a throwaway character. I think this is just the mother that's now back without Cate Blanchett. I think she is what makes that character work so well. When we first see her back and we get to see Stoic again, you can just hear everything in the voice inflections, the emotion, everything just comes through Cate Blanchett's voice, and it's just with like a couple lines. That's what's so amazing about Cate Blanchett's performance in these two films. And she also gets some good comedic moments with Jonah Hill's character in the third one, Hidden World. So I think she is the best performance in this trilogy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's go right into the freeform arguments. We talked about this before we started recording. It's a great little pendulum. Say your piece. Get out of there. Let the others have their time. Let's get it on.
All right, cool. I'm going to start this off. Hitting Tony first. Gerard Butler's emotional connection. He's the reason that you're emotionally connected. Incorrect. The reason that you're emotionally connected to that film is due to the fact between Hiccup and Toothless. Those are the reason that brings you back to that film. To Caleb's argument of without Cate Blanchett, the character wouldn't work. I can give you 4 actresses right now that would fill that role and probably do a better job. Emma Thompson, Sally Field, Tilda Swinton, and Charlize Theron. If you say any of those characters wouldn't work, Kubo and the Two Strings, perfect example of why Charlize Theron would fit perfectly in that character, because she was a mother character that supported and was also able to kick ass with just her vocal expression. Gerard Butler, you can replace him with Russell Crowe, Hugh Jackman, and Brad Pitt.
No.
I'll hit you with Hugh Jackman in Happy Feet. Hugh Jackman in Happy Feet, he was a disappointed father that turned his entire family around. But without Hiccup and Toothless, this movie does not work at all.
Quick question: is the movie set in Australia? Is it kangaroo? Are they orangutan kangaroos?
Okay,
no,
so here's
set in the Nordic side.
I'm pretty sure.
All right. You've had your time. I've had your time, Doug. We'll let Tony have his piece.
Yeah. So as I was saying, he just gave some very fantastic actors that could do a good job in other films, like Happy Feet. Like Russell Crowe could probably do some amazing work in his voice actor. But How to Train Your Dragon, that movie needed Gerard Butler. His performance is what makes that world just grow and give birth to more. because he like it's something in that accent, it's something in him that just gives it that air of credibility, that gives it that belief that, oh yeah, this isn't just Canadians messing around like trying to do funny accents. It isn't comedians like, oh hi ho, I'm Scottish, shy. This isn't Shrek. These are actual people in this world.
All right. Well, I do want to bring on Doug's point. Charlize Theron is the worst part of Kubo and the Two Strings. Let's be real here. He brings no emotion into that movie whatsoever. I think really all the actresses you could do, they're not really great voice actresses. Cate Blanchett, I don't think she had ever done a voice performance before, but she is brilliant in this. And on the whole thing of Hiccup, Jay Baruchel has kind of an annoying voice. It's really nasally. Honestly, I think that it's that character. Like, we like that character, and a lot of your arguments were kind of about the character is integral. But really, like, you could get other people to do, like, that kind of younger, character like that. I honestly think Chris Pratt could have done that type of character very well. And, like, he's shown that he's done that sort of type of, inept character in the Lego movies. So I do kind of respect that. And just quick touch on Gerard Butler. I think it's the character that makes it, not really the voice. You could get somebody else who's Scottish to do that voice. Okay.
Who?
Okay, first of all, it doesn't matter with the cast that you have. It doesn't matter about the actual accent. Per not having Hiccup, here's the thing that you don't understand. The writers wrote around Jay Baruchel. They didn't write the character in advance. They wrote around Jay Baruchel because of his audition. Without him, you don't have the movie. Without his performance, you don't have anything. Those two actors that you are both
based on a book.
It's based on a book.
It's based on one of my childhood favorites.
Okay, I understand that it's based on a book, but to be adapted, you adapted a character to fit Jay Baruchel perfectly, and he brought it and elevated the role every time he was in the booth.
But as Caleb said, it's mainly the writing that you fall in love with. That dog and his boy stories, that is very much the writing. It's not it's Jay Baruchel does a good job, but he's not the best at it. Like, you can get someone like Will Poulter, you can get someone like Miles Teller, someone that can give that youthful exuberance much more. Whereas, like, please name another Scottish actor that could do a good job as Gerard Butler did in creating that atmosphere. Because the only one I could probably think of off the top of my head is Billy Connolly, and sadly, he's not able to function anymore.
I'm going to say one right now, Brendan Gleeson. I think Brendan Gleeson would be perfect as this. I think he plays that type of character. I think he could give it like the needed humor, but I think a little bit more intensity than Gerard Butler's able to give. Like, a lot of times when when Stoic is upset at Hiccup, like in the first movie, I don't really buy it. I don't actually buy like the intensity. I would buy the intensity from Brendan Gleeson in How to Train Your Dragon more than I would buy the intensity. I think that's the biggest problem. He handles like the heart well, but he doesn't really get the intensity. And again, I think Jay Baruchel's voice, he's like trying to do the, oh yeah, you want me to train my dragon? He's just kind of doing like the funny voice, and he's just kind of relying on the writing to be good to kind of carry his, I'm doing the goofy voice.
If I can just jump in for a second, Brendan Gleeson's actually Irish, and his voice is very typically Irish. Like, he could probably put an accent on, but if he was just doing the best performance he can, it would completely change the movie, because it would be.
I wouldn't really change the movie.
All right. Let's get over to Doug here.
All right, cool. Again, the accent isn't as key as you think. The entire cast is of all different accents. Majority of them are North American accents. Thank you. Doesn't matter about who the fathers played. I'm telling you right now that Hugh Jackman could fill that role, whether he's Australian or not. He could fill it and give an accent of an American if he wanted to, and still deliver a heavyweight performance. Tilda Swinton could definitely take your place of Cate Blanchett. You can't tell me a role of where you're going to get the same performance without having Jay Baruchel. You're not going to get the same performance from any other actor. Why? Because they specifically wanted Jay Baruchel. They wanted that voice. And that's the reason why. Because he's supposed to be a whiny teenager through majority of the movie. And he evolves.
It's It's hot as balls in the UK. It's really hot today. I really want ice cream, but I'm lactose intolerant, and it's going to give me the shits. So does that mean the same with you? Because I want something that's bad for me that makes it all okay. The Jay Baruchel, he was an okay choice, but there's a lot better options he could have done there. I think that I screwed up that joke. Will Poulter, Miles Teller,
Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt
literally plays a hunky guy. He's literally
all right.
Even in his voice in the Lego
not in the Lego movie.
In the Lego movie, absolutely. Hey,
no, he's not a hunky guy, is it?
Guys. All right, we're gonna let Kaleb sort of close out the freeform here. Then we're gonna get into some closing statements. So Kaleb, just add on a little bit to the freeform, then we'll get into closing.
Okay, I do want to quick touch on the Tilda Swinton thing. I think Tilda Swinton's too kind of cold to play that character. She's never had warmth. That's kind of the big thing with Tilda Swinton is she's always distant characters, like in Burn After Reading or Michael Clayton. She's playing somebody distant, not really somebody emotional. Cate Blanchett has the humor in the third one with Jonah Hill, which is very vital. She kind of works off of Jonah Hill really well. And she has the warmth when you see her kind of come and see Stoic again. I think, again, the accent, I agree with Doug, the accent isn't really important. Brendan Gleeson would bring the intensity that Gerard Butler just can't bring that intensity. But Cate Blanchett does everything that is needed of her.
All right, guys, let's get into some closing statements here. Won't be timing you, but just try to keep it in the 45-second-ish ballpark. Doug, we'll start with you. Wrap up.
Cool. Again, you guys are hitting Will Poulter. You're getting all these actors that really wouldn't fit the role. I understand what you're trying to go for, but it was a role in which you had to grow, and he grew. With Gerard Butler, it doesn't matter about the accent. You just give me a father figure that actually cares about somebody, and it makes sense. And Hugh Jackman's already done that. Cate Blanchett, I can switch her with Emma Thompson. And this is fine for you guys to debate this. Emma Thompson has played a role in which she's been a super badass and compassionate. Put her in the role and you get something that's better than what Cate Blanchett gave you.
All right, great job. We'll go over to Tony next. Closing arguments. Wrap it up. Just try to keep it in the 45-second ballpark.
Yep. So without the Gerard Butler character, it's really just a man and his boy story, and it's a lot less impactful than it is. And it's Gerard Butler's performance as this action, like this all action, like his gravitas that gives it that like intensity, like of the father-son, like being so diverse. And as I keep going back to the accent, because the accent is really important to really set it in that universe. And I don't think anyone could have done it better than Butler. And with Cate Blanchett, like, it's one of those things where she does an okay job, but you have to question, like, was she there for name value or was she there for talent?
All right. We'll go over to Kaleb Boatman to wrap up this question.
Okay, first to talk about Cate Blanchett, I don't think anybody's ever said like anything that her performance is lacking. I think Gerard is lacking the intensity that's really needed, and Jay Baruchel, I think the problem is like when Hiccup grows and moves on, the voice really doesn't. And honestly, it's hard to kind of take some of the emotional moments seriously when they're being spoken by, oh, Jay Baruchel, be sad now. Like it really doesn't work when they're kind of being spoken by a guy who's still trying to do like the funny voice. The character grows, Jay Baruchel's performance doesn't, and that's one of the biggest problems. I think Gerard's lacking the intensity. Cate Blanchett is doing everything that's needed of her. She's there for the talent. She's a 2-time Academy Award winner. She's there because she brings the gravitas, the emotionality, but also the humor. She's such a versatile and the kind of intensity and coolness that you need from the character. She's doing every single little thing that you need from that character, and that's why she is the best performance in that trilogy.
All right, gentlemen. Great job. There's a little bit of interrupting-ish, sort of trying to figure out where the pace was, but it was good. I'm going to go first, and then I'll pass it off to the rest of the panel. I think this was turned into a let's gang up on Jay Baruchel. Tony and Kaleb did a really good job of attacking it. I applaud Doug for defending. I saw a lot of myself in his debate style. I applaud you for your attempt at defense, but just wasn't quite enough. So for me, it comes down between Tony and Kaleb, and I think it's actually Caleb's defense that gets me my point. Because with Doug, I think he had a really good choice of argument of where I was like, oh well, there's these other actresses that could fill in that position, and where Kaleb just sort of is like, all right, well, this person doesn't work. This doesn't work because of this. This person doesn't work because of that. Tony's is like, all right, the accent really sort of sets the atmosphere, but I needed more from Tony, but I'm not the only judge here. There are two others here, so Kaleb gets my point. But I'll go over to Andrew next. Andrew, who gets your point and
why? Gee, thanks. This was actually a lot closer than I thought. I think everyone sort of started throwing the same argument of, oh well, this person could have been done by a completely different actor and no one would have mattered. So that because everyone did that, it just kind of negated everyone's argument for that. However, the three arguments I heard that I really liked were Gerard Butler. It's more of the character than about the performance. Against Jay Baruchel, I heard it's more of the story that enhances it, not the performance. And for Cate Blanchett, I heard it's more name over talent. But Kaleb brought up that she delivers what is necessary to the role. The comedic moments land, which is important in a comedy. And because of that, and the fact that they didn't really, it was more just name over talent argument. I'm gonna go with Kaleb.
All right, and I guess Molly the dog agreed with you on her barking. So that means Kaleb does get the first point. Other Kaleb Koho, your vote did not count, but how would you have swayed?
Did you just call me other Kaleb? I might have to fire you. He is other Kaleb, but I would have given my point to other Kaleb because I think when the barbs came in, no one defended better than Boatman, and he had a really good response to every attack given and was able to throw really strong attacks into both of the other arguments that weren't defended as well as Boatman was defending his. So I will give my point to Boatman.
All right, well, Boatman gets the first point of the match, and we'll bump right into question number 2, a category that we have not seen since Jim versus Tim back in round 1 of season 1 Nerdgasm. And that is the Power Rangers. Go Power Rangers. And your question, gentlemen, is what is the most underrated series? All right, we're going to go over to Tony to kick off the opening statements. You have 1 minute. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, this is going to be fun. So, a little backstory of the Power Rangers in the UK. It's not a thing. It's just for whatever reason, it didn't make this transatlantic trip. It didn't do anything. So, and I've tried to go back and watch some of it, and it's trash. Like, it is god awful. Like, you see the cuts, like, dear God, why is it entertainment? Like, Jesus wept. So, what I'm going for the most underrated series is the one that's actually decent that I found, which is Dino Thunder. It's the one that is highly recommended by Power Rangers fans. It's the one that is given the credit of having good stories, the overarching story throughout it, and the acting's good in it, but it's the only one that I've found which doesn't make me want to pull my hair out watching it. And as someone that isn't a Power Rangers fan, I think that's the most underrated because it's decent.
All right. Over to Kaleb Boatman next. Your opening statements. You got a minute. Time begins when you start.
I'm going to agree with Tony. The Power Rangers are trash. They are all trash. Not even if they're decent, they're still Power Rangers, so they're trash. So to me, the most underrated Power Rangers series is the one that says, you know what? We know that you can't really get anything actually like dramatic or serious or anything like that. So we're just going to have fun. That's why I'm going with Power Rangers Samurai. That's the one where it's like, we're going to throw out all the soap opera style drama and intricate stories and all that. We're going to have a villain whose weapon is insult. He insults people and that's how he uses them. Like, that's silly. But that's kind of what you need to be in a Power Rangers. And I think it's underrated because Power Rangers fans like crap on it. And I think that's because it came out like after they were watching Power Rangers.
All right. Excellent. Over to Doug to wrap up opening statements. You got 1 minute to tell us what you feel is the most underrated Power Ranger series.
Woo! I'm gonna be the only one in this camp. Gotta love it. When you think of underrated, you look at lists and you see what's kept off the list or what should be on the list that's not on the list. And when it comes to that, as a Power Rangers fan, you guys can talk shit all you want. It comes to Time Force. Time Force was one of the first series to actually take some real issues and intervene it into the show. It dealt with racism. It dealt with classism. It dealt with sexism. It dealt with a lot of these issues that aren't dealt with in the later series. It's just got a good story over arc. Yeah, I'll save the rest for the freeform because underrated doesn't mean either it's really good or it's trash. It means it deserves to be on the list and it's not recognized.
All right. Excellent, gentlemen. Let's get right into the freeform. You know how it works. Let's get it on.
Right. So I think the question I've got to ask in this is, dear God, Douglas, what is wrong with you for liking this? Like, seriously, like, even when I remember watching it on Fox Kids as a 10-year-old, I was there just like, dear God, this is terrible. Where's my cartoons? Like, why are these Americans trying to pretend to be Japanese? Like, it's absolutely trash, man. And I know we're talking, like, I'm just saying the whole thing. Like, I'm just curious, what is the greatest series of all time in your mind?
I mean, I'm not next up, but sure. Okay. I guess I'll go next.
What?
I don't know why.
I think he was just asking you like a one quick question.
I'll answer my part of the freeform.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in here and say I think Tony, your definition of underrated, you contradicted yourself because you were like, oh, I looked on all the lists and the one that everybody praises is Dino Thunder. That's the one that everybody says is the best and the best. And then it's not underrated because Power Rangers fans consider it the best. That's not what underrated means. And I think, Doug, your thing is you're getting Power Rangers to take real issues. Honestly, I'm not going to be able to take that seriously if it's a bunch of multicolor or primary color like red, green, yellow, blue. We're gonna stop racism. Like, you can't take that seriously. You need like an important show to tackle it. You can't take it seriously if it's just a bunch of teenagers who get inside a robot. Like, that just doesn't make sense. I think Samurai is underrated because it says, okay, we don't need to take it seriously. We are going to have fun. And for some reason, adult Power Rangers fans are like, this is not my Power Rangers.
Okay, correction here, just to give you a little bit of story. Just because something isn't maybe your style doesn't mean it can't speak to children, and which is teaching them how to maybe treat someone with a little bit respect instead of, I don't know, judging them for the color of their skin or what their skin looks like. This is what happens. Okay, people want to judge a series based on, okay, they're multicolored and they're getting in robots and, oh, it's got to be silly. No. Okay, you have an episode in which they tell the backstory of Rancic, who is the main villain, and the reason that he hates human beings is because of how they treated him like garbage. Not like, oh, let's downtrodden him. No, you literally have people treating him like garbage. His daughter finds the humanity in humans, finds being different than her husband. The Frax character, I'm not even getting into the Rangers, the Frax character is a character that was put into a robot after the main villain kills him by being saved by Frax. You're talking about, oh, well, these series aren't that good. Well, guess what? They are good. And I'm going to tell you the underrated. When it's underrated, it means it should be on a list when it's not. Your series, Caleb, is not a good series because it doesn't have the audacity to take shots and take risks on giving you a story that you can give to children. Caleb, Tony, the reason that your story is so good is because it brought back Tommy Oliver, one of the best characters.
All right. Over to Tony.
So I think the question is, what do we count as underrated? Because I'm looking at the whole genre, I guess, of Power Rangers and saying that people that aren't like Dino World Power Rangers fans, they look at it and see it as pretty much just childish trash. So that's what I'm looking for. Why the reason why Dino Thunder is underrated is because it's actually pretty decent. Like, there's follow through stories the whole season long. There's actually some conclusion to the end of it. It doesn't just dissolve like most of the Power Rangers stuff I've seen. There's actually character growth that goes above. And we're talking about Douglas mentioned about children. Like, children actually want to be able to watch episodic things. Like, if you have young children, if you watch them about PJ Masks, there's actually stories gone for the entire thing. And I work with really small children. They know those stories, so they want that to chew on. Whereas the older stuff, like the stuff like Douglas is talking about, stuff that Caleb's talking about, it's just pretty much just, here's the one episode, chew on it, then throw it away.
Okay, like, to talk about like the serious issues that covered in Time Force. Sure, it's good that they're teaching these lessons to small children because everybody needs to get that. I'm not discounting that, but that being said, that doesn't mean it's a good show. You can get after-school specials with like no budget that gives those messages. That doesn't make it good. I don't need like in big like serious things from Power Rangers. Power Rangers needs to be fun and stupid, or it's not going to be, and it's not worth watching. There are better things that you can be watching if you want to tackle the issues of racism, fascism, sexism, all that stuff. There are better, more dramatic, fun kid shows even that could tackle that. I think, honestly, like, Power Rangers is just supposed to be silly and fun and stupid, because it's a bunch of multicolored, primary colored teenagers that get inside a robot. And that's what it's supposed to be. And that's what Samurai is. Samurai is fun. And again, it's underrated because all the, people who grew up with the 90s Power Rangers, they crap on it because it wasn't what they grew up with, not because of the actual quality of the show.
Okay, no, the quality of the show and the subject matter and the entire writing of it is trash. The original series wasn't good either. It started to get better later in the series when they dealt with real issues like poverty, like abuse, like bullying. They dealt with those issues. And the one that deals with it the most is Time Force. The one that's kept off the list the most is Time Force, due to the fact that it's not thought about. It's one of those series that you're like, oh, Time Force, yeah, that's a great series. That should be on a list. But people forget because there's so many other ones. Tony, your Dino Thunder, the reason why it's so great is because they brought back a mainstay character to make it that great. Tommy Oliver's been a mainstay character since the origin.
Cool.
Okay? Caleb, the reason that your show's not great is because of simple reasons that you stated. It's literally just an episodic, let's just get to the point. There's no actual storyline. There's no through line to keep people's attention. There's no real through line. There's 2 stories in that. I can name 5 in my series alone. I can name 6 in Tony's. Tony's is a great series, but it's not underrated.
All right. Judges have heard enough for the freeform. We're going to go into the closing. We're going to go back over to Tony to wrap up your argument.
Right, so this argument really depends on whether the judges are Power Rangers fans or not. If they're in the same boat as me, as someone that disagrees with the idea that it's good, like something that's actually decent, is underrated, because it's one of those things you look at it and go, okay, for trash children's TV, you've actually got something decent there. You can actually build on that. You can develop that. If Dino Thunder was the basis of the movie, it probably would have done okay rather than the naff that it was. Like, you look at it and just like, it blows my mind that it's a decent thing in this trash almost.
Cool. We'll go over to Kaleb Boatman next.
Okay, Tony, I want to talk about Dino Thunder for a second. I think the problem with Dino Thunder, like you said, you say, oh, it's not, it is underrated because I don't like Power Rangers. I think Power Rangers is bad, and this one actually seems decent. Well, that's not what underrated means. The Power Rangers fans, you saw that on every Power Rangers list. You said that. Every single Power Rangers list you had said that at the top, because that is the most popular, the most well-liked one. That does not mean it's underrated. Doug, again, Time Force, it's too serious. It's too serious. That's not what we need from Power Rangers. Power Rangers is supposed to be fun. The reason you sit down and watch Power Rangers is because Power Rangers is fun and silly. You want to kick back, you want to have some popcorn, and you want to just watch something fun. Your show doesn't sound fun. It sounds like it's going to be preachy and just not make me feel good. I want Power Rangers to make me feel good, have some fun, and that's what Samurai is. It's just fun. It doesn't try to overcomplicate anything. It's just letting you have a little bit of fun while you're watching a Power Rangers show, which is exactly what Power Rangers should be.
All right, over to Doug to wrap up the closing statements for this question. Once again, gentlemen, just try to keep it in that like 45 to minute-ish sort of ballpark.
Okay, I'm going to try and make this as short and sweet as possible on you here. The question, again, is most underrated. When you look at most underrated, it's not most hated. It's not the best. Samurai literally fell flat with an entire community. If that's not saying that it's that doesn't deserve to be on the list, that's something. Tony's Choice, obviously, it's one of the better series, and it's usually at the top of the list because of the fact of it brought back Tommy Oliver. Everybody was cheering on. Time Force is usually left off a list or at the bottom of the list of the top 10 because of the fact is that a lot of people forget that it's there. Not that it's an unforgettable series. There's a lot of series in Power Rangers. But if you ask them, there were 4 series in a row. There was Light Force, there was Lost Galaxy, there was Lost in Space, and there was Time Force. All of those together, and Time Force is something that gets a little left out, and it's unfair.
All right. Great job, guys. Good arguments. We'll now go over to the panel for their decision. I'm going to start with Kaleb Koho because your vote did not count last time. Kaleb, who gets your point and why?
This one I felt kind of was the same way, but for one person. I'm giving my point to Doug. I think Doug did the best job of selling me on why his show is underrated. Tony kind of just sat there and said that Power Rangers is garbage entirely. And did give you a reason why his is actually underrated. And Boatman did a good job of tearing that down. And while Boatman did a good job of attacking Dino Thunder, he couldn't really attack Time Force except saying it's too serious. He did a solid job of selling Samurai, but Douglas did a really good job of tearing that down. So I'm gonna give my point to Douglas.
All right. I'm going to go next, and I actually agree with my judge partner as well. I'm also going to go with Doug. I think that all 3 competitors in that start of the free form, I think they're both like they're all like, all right, out of these 3 shows, which one is the best? I think Doug tackled the question best. What is the most underrated? And he sort of gave you that aspect. I applaud Tony for trying to go for like a minimalistic, like the entire series of shit. It's just the one that happens to be good. And I think Kaleb did a really good job to try to give that campy side. But I think it comes down to the knowledge of the content, and I think that's where Doug Zed's really got to shine. Andrew, your vote did not count, but how would you have swayed?
I would have gone the same way. I think Doug was the one who really argued why it was underrated, not necessarily why it was the best. I think everyone else started to argue why theirs was the best, but not why it was underrated. So that's why I would have given it to Doug.
All right.
Let's be real. We all knew Doug was going to win that one. I picked the only show that I had actually seen.
And jokes on you guys, I actually like the Power Rangers series. My favorite is Ninja Storm, but if I had to answer this question, I would have said Lightspeed Rescue. I think that show gets much more slack than it deserves. But enough about Power Rangers. Let's move on to a category making its debut in Nerdgasm. That is Bond. James Bond finally being suggested for a category in Nerdgasm. And the question is as follows. I think probably of the judges, probably the one we were sort of excited for the most. What is the best movie to introduce somebody to the James Bond world? We're going to start off with Kaleb Boatman. You have 1 minute. Time begins when you start talking.
To me, I think, you're introducing somebody to the world. So you want them to continue to keep watching the entire franchise, but you also want them to have a good idea of what they are going to get. That's why I'm going with GoldenEye. Because I think if you go something like pre-GoldenEye, you're going to get something too campy and it's going to turn them off. It's going to be too silly for them. But if you go anything like post that, it doesn't really represent the entire series. GoldenEye does have like the fun stuff with Famke Jensen and all that, but it has the good action and the good story of Bond going up against Sean Bean's character, another 00 agent, and I think that's really fun. I think it's a great action film, and it really works.
All right, I'll go over to Doug next. Your opening statement. You got a minute. Time begins when you start talking.
Cool. So I'm in the same boat as Caleb. We're on the same page, except I think what kind of turned me back onto Bond and turned me into, loving Bond just the same is something that my cousin brought to my attention and brought me to the modern age of Bond and Casino Royale. Daniel Craig's Bond is literally the epitome of what Bond should be from now on. I think it brought some of the best action, some of the best fighting that James Bond's ever done. And when you get your first initial look at him, you're like, oh, he's not going to be that intimidating. By the end of the movie, you're like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that dude ever in my life. Let's watch the next one. Yeah.
All right, I'll go over to Tony to wrap up his the opening statements. Time to get into start talking.
Okay, so with introducing Bond, like this is a thing over here. This is a ritual that you have as a child. You sit down and watch ITV to see Bond. And one of the ones that you see are the classic ones first. So it's really, for me personally, it's a toss-up. Do you go from the very beginning? Do you go with Dr. No, or do you go with a better Bond in Roger Moore and Live and Let Die? Live and Let Die is immensely a classic of the 70s. It's such a great film. Roger Moore just instantly is Bond. He portrays it so well. There's so much the campiness in it. It's just so capturing. Solitaire is such a great Bond girl. It's like the music in it. Live and Let Die is one of the best Bond tracks. You'll stick in your mind. And also, if you look at the run forwards, so if you look at what like Brosnan is there's a bit of ebb and flow of the quality of movies. Daniel Craig, they're okay, but there's some massive drop falls. Roger Moore, it stays on the same level. It stays on that same good graces for quite a period of time. And then you can expand from there and go, oh, here's Connery, here's Dalton, and then you can go for the older stuff, newer stuff, I should say.
All right, gentlemen. Opening statements have been made. Let's get into the free form. Let's get it on.
Okay, I'm going to jump right in here and first talk about Casino Royale. I think Casino Royale is a good movie. I think as far as introducing somebody to the Bond movie, I think there's a problem. I think, if you want to introduce somebody with a great, like, Daniel Craig Bond, do Skyfall, because then you're going to get some of the more, like, fun Bond elements that'll get them to watch the rest of the series. I think the biggest problem with Casino Royale is that it's not like the campy, fun Bond. Daniel Craig is, like, so miserable and upset in that entire movie. He's not having fun throughout that whole thing, and part of the enjoyment is the way that it takes the Bond tropes we know and kind of turns them around. Like, what would you like to drink, sir? I don't. Martini, how do you want it? I don't care. Like, it takes the tropes that we know and flips them around, which is why you need to have some sort of knowledge of Bond like the other movies first, so it's not a great introduction. To talk about Live and Let Die, I think the problem with that one, it's the exact opposite. It's too campy that it's going to turn somebody off of the franchise. I think the villain explodes and inflates. Like, if I watch that for the first time, I'm like, what is this franchise? It's stupid. I don't want to watch it.
So you're saying that mine's not campy. Well, in this modern age, most people want the Ethan Hunt. Most people want that kind of gritty person. And if you're going to draw somebody in, you're not going to draw them in with camp. Unfortunately, unless they're like 5. If you're trying to get somebody's attention outside of a 5-year-old, you're going to go and do something that's a little bit more gritty. And what that is Daniel Craig. And you're saying go to, other Daniel Craigs and introduce them that way. Why? When you can introduce them to the very first Daniel Craig movie, which is a super solid movie, and it's a really good James Bond. It's the James Bond of the modern age, fellas. I'm sorry. You can introduce somebody later to the older ones where there's some camp and they can understand the past while still appreciating the future.
Doug, I like you're trying to rewrite history, but sadly, Bond doesn't start in the 2010s or late 21st century. Bond is a character that goes on for decades. If you're introducing someone to the franchise, you need the good, the bad, and the ugly. You need all of it. You need to to truly get a sense of Bond. So to go with Casino Royale, I'll be honest, it's one of my favorite Bond films. But when I finish it, I don't go, oh, I want to watch another Bond film. I want to watch a Timothy Dalton one. I go, oh, I want to watch Bourne now. I want to watch Mission Impossible. I want to watch them. Whereas, and GoldenEye, it's just there. It's just mediocre in the grand scheme of Bond. It doesn't swing one way or the other. It's just Brosnan doesn't bring anything special to the character apart from a little, he's not a Moore, he's not a Connery, he's not even a Craig. If you really want to attach someone to the character, you need Roger Moore.
Again, I disagree with you there. I think Brosnan kind of is like the perfect balance of like everything that you need in a James Bond. I think he is suave, but he also has the action, but he also does have the good one-liners and all that you want in a great James Bond movie. I think to kind of hit on your points, Doug, it's not going to draw people in. I think you brought up like Ethan Hunt. And you said, oh, people want Ethan Hunt. Ethan Hunt's not that miserable. Ethan Hunt's having fun when he's out there. He's having a good time. In Casino Royale, he's not having a good time. That movie's not fun, and I think Tony's right. People are going to want to watch Bourne and all that. They're going to watch like one of the older Bonds after Casino Royale. They're like, what is this? This isn't what I want from a Bond movie. I think Live and Let Die, you did say that like Roger Moore is like on the same, like hits the same level throughout his whole career where Pierce Brosnan like weakens as his movies went on. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the movies, Tony, and each individual movie. And I think GoldenEye, it really works well as a movie. It's a great kind of fun action story. It has the funness and the camp, but it's not too campy to where it's going to turn people off. It's just fun. It's a fun, great action movie.
All right, so to use your point against you, you said that it's about the movies. Casino Royale is one of the better James Bond movies that's out there. Okay, if you're going to introduce somebody to a James Bond movie and you want to start them at the beginning of a James Bond or a 007, if you will, you start them with his beginning chapter. And that's Casino Royale. You yourself, Caleb, said it's about the movie. It's not necessarily about the Bond. But the Bond makes the movie. And Casino Royale would be nothing without Daniel Craig as James Bond. James Bond, you want to be introduced to this person. And he's actually, I'm sorry, he's very suave in the movie. Very suave in the movie. And he just adds a gravitas of action to the movie, which maybe not for you guys is important in a Bond movie, but now in the modern age, it's important. That's how you're going to draw people in. I'm sorry. That is how you're going to draw people in to get watching and go to the past to appreciate it.
But it's such a big difference, Casino Royale and the rest of Bond. It's like you're gonna watch it like two completely different things. You try and show someone, then you show someone Octopussy. They'll just go, "What the hell is this? This is completely different." You need to gradually introduce them to the Bond series to get the characters, which Live and Let Die really does well. You have Phoenix Lighter in it, you have the SIS in it, you have Miss Moneypenny in it, and then it also gives you the ability to build on like, oh yeah, you can go see Q in this next movie, you can go see M in this next movie. And also in terms of Caleb's point about the quality of movies going forward, it's a case we're introducing people to them. If you show them Pierce Brosnan, you're gonna have to show them Die Another Day very soon. And you shouldn't show anyone Die Another Day. Whereas with the Moore films, you get the classic films that they can build on, and then you can watch like, oh yeah, you've got this one to go next, you have this one next, this one, and also, do you want to see the guy before him because he was Scottish and he did this really cool thing, and it's like, and then oh yeah, we went older, we went more serious on the Manchester Secret Service, we did this, we did that. Whereas with Brosnan and Craig, you just feel like you're gonna lose those people a minute or two after.
All right,
I disagree completely. I think Brosnan.
Sorry, judges have heard enough. We're going to go into closing arguments now. We'll go to Boatman. Once again, guys, keep your closing arguments in that 45-second to 1 minute window.
I'm going to disagree completely. I think that Brosnan hits the level where if I show them GoldenEye first, I could show them Casino Royale or Live and Let Die second. I could go to either of those two. Somebody could jump off from there. I think you can't do that. You can't show somebody Live and Let Die and then Casino Royale right after, or vice versa. GoldenEye is such the perfect balance of both of those. I'm going to point on Doug's point on the gravitas of the action. Yeah, you have great gravitas of the action with the bungee jumping scene or the end when they're on top of the tower. There's like a lot of great fun action. And again, the references in Casino Royale is best enjoyed when you have an idea of what Bond is, because it's such a subversive idea of Bond. You need to understand the concept of Bond as a character. And Live and Let Die, again, it's too silly. It's too goofy. People are going to be turned off by it. You're going to watch it and be like, this is too silly. The villain inflates and explodes, and that's how he dies, and he has sharks. Like, that's some Dr. Evil Austin Powers stuff. And it's just far too silly, and it's going to turn people off from watching any more Bond films.
All right. Cool. Over to Doug for your closing arguments. Once again, we're now second to minute range.
Cool. I'm going to hit on the same note that Kaleb hit. You don't want to scare somebody off with too camp. If it's too camp, it's going to scare people off. Per Caleb's note about not knowing about something and people wouldn't care. That's not true at all, because if you ever been to a comic book movie, guess what? People don't know shit, and they go back home and research it. If you give them Casino Royale, you're giving a Bond that pays homage to previous Bonds to make your curiosity grow about the character. There's about to be 25 years of 25 Bonds, 25 different Bond movies. Just of people exploring that. The way you get them to explore it in the modern age is with a modern Bond. That's how you get it to, basically, you get somebody's appreciation to grow. You get them to want to invest in a character first. And you do that with Casino Royale.
Cool. All right. And over to Tony now to wrap up the final prep question.
Right, I'm going to talk about Live and Let Die a lot more, but Doug, just quickly say, how many people watch Mission Impossible film series, then went to watch the TV show? Live and Let Die is the best one because it does, like, yes, the ending is a bit silly, but the scenes in it, the boat scene is fantastic in it. The plane scene where they see the literal wings get ripped off and he tries to fly, that's great. Moore's performance is one of the best Bond performances, and as I said before, the song "Live and Let Die" is one of the songs that will stick in your head, and it'll make you go, "Oh, that's a fantastic song. Let me hear Show the Bassies now. Let me hear this one. Let me hear that one." Like, to learn about Bond is an really important thing over here, and you need to start from the beginning. You need to get that understanding. You need to get that love of the classic, so you can understand the new. You can learn to love it.
All right, cool. We'll now go over to the judges for their decision. We're going to start with Kaleb Koho, because your vote did not count. Oh, sorry, Andrew. Andrew's vote did not count last time. I definitely am all here. Andrew, who gets your point and why?
Can I just get a repeat of the question one more time?
The question is, what is the best movie to introduce somebody to James Bond?
Okay. This was really close for me. I think Tony really hurt Doug when he said it's such a different tone than the rest of the Bond movies that it's not a good start. So it really came down to Kaleb and Tony for me. And the reason I'm going to go with Kaleb is because he says it's such a good middle point that you can go either way, introducing where Bond goes or where he comes from, that it gets you really interested and can either like make you want the grittiness or make you search for the campiness. It's really tough. It's like a hair, but I'm going to give it to Kaleb.
Can I just jump in and demand that he takes down his Beatles? In the background.
All right, sorry. I'll put up my country music.
You can have Tina Turner instead now.
All right, over to Kaleb Koho now for your decision.
Yeah, I think Tony did a good job of taking out why Casino Royale isn't that great, and I think Boatman kind of presented the argument in a really good way of that Golden Knight is kind of the best of both worlds. It keeps the campiness and the seriousness. So with that point, I'm going to very slightly lean in favor of Boatman.
All right. Well, that means two things. One, Kaleb has the advantage. Actually, it means three things. One, Kaleb has the advantage going into the speed round. Two, Doug is going into the speed round. Unfortunately, Tony, you have been eliminated from the match. You actually would have gotten my vote. I think I think you did a good job of like, all right, here's where you're starting, and then here's where you're going after. Caleb's like, oh well, you can go either way, but it's like I got a more like I think a more laid out argument from Tony as to Kaleb. I agree with both of them. I think they both attacked the same thing. Question one, attacked Doug. Doug did what he could, but it just wasn't quite enough. And I think, but my vote doesn't count. Alrighty, it's Kaleb versus Doug in the speed round portion. Kaleb is going to have that advantage 2-1, so we will only need 1 point to win. Doug will need the 2 to get the W. But like I said to the competitors, there is a 40-second opening followed by a 30-second rebuttal. Once I finish the question, if I hear you first, you're going to be going first. Best of luck, and please listen very carefully to the following questions. Whenever, just fix up this. All right, there you go. All right, so your first question is as follows. What is the most exciting movie announcement in Phase 4 for the MCU?
The Eternals.
The Eternals.
No.
The Eternals?
Yeah, I know what you said. I was going to say Blade, and then I backed up because I realized that's not Phase 4. Dang. Is Black Panther 2 in Phase 4?
Nope.
No.
I didn't pay attention to Comic-Con, guys. Dang.
Damn it, Boatman. You should have stopped watching The Third Man again for 5 minutes.
Dang, I hate this question because I didn't. Black Widow. Black Widow.
All right. After much deliberation between Kaleb Boatman and Kaleb Borman, we came up with Black Widow versus the Eternals. But I did hear the Eternals first. Doug, you're gonna have 40 seconds for your opening argument. Time begins when you start talking.
All right, so let me paint a picture for you real quick. You have one of the most diverse casts, not just a cast of men and women. You have a cast of diversity. You have a cast that's led by Salma Hayek and Angelina Jolie. You have a female director. You have something that is now going to be, it's not going to be the first, unfortunately, because they've been waiting for Black Widow. So I'll give Kaleb that. That's going to be the first female-led one. But this is going to be something that's going to be on the level of Endgame and Infinity War. With the Eternals, you get the most powerful beings in the universe.
All right, perfect. Over to Kaleb for your opening arguments. 40 seconds. Time begins when you start talking.
Okay, I was so happy that the first thing I saw when I looked up Comic-Con announcements is Black Widow, because this is a character who we have been waiting and deserves her own solo project, because Black Widow is one of the most interesting characters. I think her backstory is going to be incredibly, incredibly interesting. I want to see where she comes from, because this is a character who the backstory we don't know, but unlike some characters, it's actually needed, and it'll be interesting to see how she got from point A to point B, this kind of transformation of her into this killer, and then kind of like going out of that life and being, becoming a good person. I think that's really just a fascinating transformation that I want to see. I don't care about the Eternals.
Time. All right, over to rebuttals now, starting with Doug. 30 seconds. Floor is yours.
Comic book fans rejoice because the Eternals is something that a lot of comic book fans have been waiting for. You may not care about it, Kaleb, but a lot of people do. Black Widow, we know what she's been through. We know where she's going because that's the story's already said. They're going to introduce one character that's exciting for the future, which is Taskmaster. The rest of them, I care less about. The Eternals is an entire universe expanding.
Perfect. Over to Kaleb Boatman to wrap up the question.
Sure, it's going to add a lot of things later, and those things will probably not be at their best in the Eternals. Those things will be at best in, like, the big team-up movies. Anytime they try to expand the universe, like in Captain Marvel or Doctor Strange, it's like, okay, those movies are fine, but now we're actually waiting them for them to show up in, like, the big team-up movies. Black Widow, sure, it might not add a whole lot, but what it is, it's going to give us a great, intriguing story, a character study, a character transforming, becoming something different, and a great villain that I'm excited for with Taskmaster.
Time. Oh boy, this is tough. Holy crap! All right, let's go to the judges panel. I'm gonna go first because my vote did not count last time. Both competitors pitching different sides of the coin. Doug sort of going on, look at what this is going to do for the MCU, really continue to expand. Whereas Kaleb Bowman's is like, this is a character who's had a lot of backstory that's wanted to be explored. By this, I'm gonna go Kaleb by a hair. I'm gonna have to go Kaleb. I think just because he really sold me on the idea of, like, this is something that we've been looking to, that fans have been looking forward to, and then he gave a good counterpoint as to why necessarily expanding with new characters doesn't work. And I didn't quite get that from Doug, but it's like 55-45. Kaleb, I'm not the only judge here, though. I am going to go to Andrew next. Who gets your point and why?
Okay, so I like Doug's argument that it could expand the universe, but then Kaleb came back and said, so did these two movies, and they weren't necessarily the greatest. And unfortunately, Doug kind of gave Kaleb a point when he started talking about diversity, and then I guess your movie's going to do that first when it came to the director. And because of that, I didn't hear enough about Eternals, and I heard more about Black Widow to get me excited, so I'm giving it to Kaleb as well.
All right. Well, that means that your winner, gentlemen, is Kaleb Boatman. We're going to go over to Kaleb Koho. Your vote did not count in this one. How would you have swayed?
I would have also gone with Boatman. I think Doug did a solid job of, like, teeing up the Eternals, and then Boatman just punched him in the face by kind of just saying, like, yeah, they did that. Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel, and they are better in team-up movies than they are on their own. And then also kind of, like, was able to block the other shots that were on Black Widow, where it's like, we know where his story's going. It's like, yeah, but the journey might be cool with a good story. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Boatman.
All right, let's do some post-match interviews very quickly, starting off with our winner, Kaleb Boatman. Kaleb, you got the first point, and then you got the third point. And then you sort of got the speed round. Sort of been staying consistent throughout the match. But how do you feel about your win today?
Oh, I feel great. I'm very happy with my win. The one thing, it's just like, yeah, I didn't get the Power Rangers one. I picked the one Power Rangers show I had actually watched as part of my argument. So that was just like, okay, I'll argue for this one because I've seen it and everybody craps on it. But Doug, he knows Power Rangers, so they're good for him. He fought very well in that one. The other ones, it's like everybody fought very well. I just, I planned out my answers where it was like, okay, I want to be able to counteract, from every angle and see why this is like the best of both worlds. And that's what I try to do. Speed rounds are always tough because it's like you only have 40 seconds to come up with an answer, especially because I had to Google Marvel's Phase 4 slate. And Black Widow was just the first one that came up. So I just kind of got lucky with that one.
All right. We'll go over now to Doug. Doug, I think the Power Rangers question was a great example of what power and what talent you have in a category that you are super passionate about. Obviously, you got that point in Power Rangers. I think it's just a touch short on the speed round question at MCU. But how do you feel about your performance on the list?
I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I didn't get the points, so that's what it is.
All right. And over to Tony. Tony, you did not get to escape the prep questions in advance on. But no. How did you think of the speed round question? Are we fools to give Kaleb the win?
No, I drew a little boat thinking to show my support, I thought Caleb had the right answer. I think the true answer is Doctor Strange, because I think that bringing in horror element is going to be something amazing. But sadly, annoyingly, I didn't get through. But yeah, I'm happy with my performance. I think it's just one of those things. I ran into a boat and sunk.
All right. Over to judges for some final thoughts. Andrew, what did you think of this match?
This was the kind of match that I was hoping for. Barbs just throwing left and right, and really tight arguments that I had a hard time struggling to pick an answer for. Everything I wanted. Good match to all. You guys really delivered here.
I'm Kaleb Koho.
There we go. I was like, I'm muted. I remembered. Yeah, no, this was a great match all the way around. I think Boatman really showed what he could do. I think Doug really showed what he could do. And I think Tony even was presenting good fights. He was just kind of stuck in a triple threat situation where if you're not the absolute best, you're not necessarily winning in that round, which is kind of tough. But I think Tony could definitely come back. Doug could come back. And I think Bowman's got a bright future ahead of him.
All right. And yeah, just to wrap things up, I think this match is a good example of, in that triple threat format, is that you need to be somebody else's strength. I think in the last match, everyone got the point in their strength that they're in. So I think for competitors moving forward, you need to do your research on the other ones, because if you don't have that knowledge going into it, you could suffer, and that could cost you the game. But a great match nonetheless. I want to thank all of our competitors, Tony, Doug, Caleb. Congratulations on getting the win. We'll be seeing all three of you back in Nerdgasm sometime eventually. But for Tony, Caleb, Doug, Andrew, Kaleb Koho, I'm the Black Letter Brooklyn Vail. Cheers, guys. Be sure to subscribe to Multiplex and all the various content that we do. And as always, drive safely.